What's going on, ladies and gents, boys and girls, guardians of all ages? Joker back again once again. Huh, that's not a good... Oh crap, oh crap, oh crap, oh crap, oh crap, oh crap! Bad day, bad day, bad day, bad day, bad... Convenient hatches, convenient. Alright, come on, you son of a... Okay, and we're in! So, that was a thing that happened. It's a good thing the laws of physics don't affect us, or as we were jumping into the hatch, we would have been blown away like the lid, the door, the thing. Whew, that was close. Oh yeah, you're probably wondering about the new look. Let me grab a chair and get comfortable. So my computer died, and well, this'll have to do until I can get access to files that I know I backed up, but can't find where I backed them up to. This is also why it's taken me so long to get this video recorded and edited, and in fact, you'll notice throughout the whole video that the editing is much different. That is something that I had to figure out on the fly. Thankfully, just pure happenstance, Destiny got my Destiny shader-ish, kind of, almost, near enough not to matter. So that was serendipitous. And with that explanation out of the way, let's get into my review of Lightfall. There is a good chance, just based on the size of the script, that this review will be cut into two parts. A spoiler and non-spoiler review. This is the non-spoiler review. However, I should note there may be some visual spoilers, but nothing too big. So let's go ahead and start with the good, and well, mostly good. And you know, a little criticism on what the good could have done better. I know, fanboys. But Joker, you're never happy. You even have to criticize the good stuff? Yeah, that's how art works. Nothing is perfect, and there's always room for improvement. And Lightfall isn't perfect, not even close. There are three main things that Lightfall as a $50 expansion does right, and then one huge thing that wasn't part of the expansion, but part of the release window, that is, for all intents and purposes, a categorical game changer to the Destiny franchise. So for starters, is Strand fun? Yes. Is it great? Well, you know, depends on who you ask and what class they play. Now, full bias on the table, I don't really like Strand. It's just not a gameplay style I enjoy. And you really think it would be. I mean, you get 3 melees and your super is punching things. What's not to love? Well, I found the melee too floaty, too not there, too detached, and I don't find the super to be that much better. It just lacks that je ne sais quoi that shoulder charge has. For me, it comes down to a guttural feel. This...
Enemy has advantage. You wage war like a true fighter.
Simply isn't as satisfying as this.
Double down.
But that's just a personal preference and doesn't really affect my opinion of Strand. However, for the sake of transparency, I figured I should let you know that I don't like it as a Titan, which is different than liking it as a class or liking it as an idea or thinking it's good or bad. Nuance! So with that said, any opinion on Strand is inevitably going to be a at time of recording opinion. Yes, we are playing the game of asterisks and qualifiers here. Sorry, not sorry. I'm not going to be one of those YouTubers who says, "Oh, Strand sucks," only to a day or two later go, "Oh my god, Strand is so broken, watch this video." So, asterisks and qualifiers. Currently, Strand simultaneously feels both overpowered and like it falls behind every other subclass. First, I think it's because Strand is very build dependent. Second, it has a lot to do with the highly telegraphed, slow-moving projectiles that are pretty easy to avoid in PvP and long cooldowns that are easily circumvented in PvE, which in my not professional opinion is good balance. The last thing anyone wants is another stasis, aka a series of abilities that comes out, ruins PvP, and then gets nerfed into oblivion 6 months later. No one wants that. Strand on a proper build, not whatever the fuck I'm doing in these videos, is going to virtually turn off PvE. I mean, these battleground heists are supposed to be the new default difficulty, and the only thing that's difficult about them is not falling asleep because they go on an encounter too long and become tedious. But Strand turns everything here off, removing virtually all difficulty from the content. And hey, you can like that. I certainly don't mind it, because tedium, no one likes tedium, but people are going to come after Strand. I mean, let's be real, let's be honest, let's be real honest. People came after a plus 40 resilience. People came after Heart of Inmost Light. People are coming after Starfire Protocol. Whether you agree or disagree with those things getting nerfed, Strand is far worse in PvE. Don't buy Lightfall for Strand like people did with Beyond Light for Stasis. That's a lot of money to put down on a class that you're just going to be upset about when Bungie inevitably nerfs it, because they will. Duh! Sure, this is all predicated on endgame viability, but damage resistance from Woven Mail, on top of a plus 30 to resilience that people already think is too much, on top of the ability to reduce the amount of damage that an enemy can do, on top of more or less turning a large portion of the AI off, and automating ad clear. If Strand isn't already being looked at by the usual suspects for nerfs, I would honestly be shocked. But what about Strand in PvP? Well, in my not so expert opinion, at time of recording, I honestly don't think Strand is that big of an issue. That's not to say that Strand isn't annoying. Being ripped into third person and losing control of your character is always going to be an unpleasant feeling. It's always going to feel jarring, so it doesn't really matter if Strand does a lot of damage, because being ripped into third person in a way that you don't expect, control, or are ready for is always going to be disorienting. The damage doesn't matter. Hell, the duration doesn't matter. It still sucks to get hit by. With that said, if we're being purely objective at time of recording, Strand, it doesn't seem that powerful. In my general experience, I played about 10 hours of Crucible before recording this video. I got hit with it maybe once, maybe twice. So it is fairly easy to avoid, it's just annoying when it works. That said, here's the asterisk. In PvP, it could also just be a set of abilities with a high skill ceiling. And if that turns out to be the case, well, with skill-based matchmaking, that's not something the vast majority of Destiny 2 players are ever going to have to see. The last thing that I want to say about Strand is kinda sort of more of a tangent, and that has to deal with Strand in the campaign, which often feels like an active detriment. To be completely honest, any fight that you have to use Strand in, you're far better off with a light-based subclass, which does have repercussions for the overall narrative, but more on that in the spoiler section and/or video. In fact, I would argue the campaign version of Strand probably left a lot of people thinking that the subclass would be weak, which is not the case at all. It's a little more complex than that. And you know what? That complexity is welcome. But moving forward to the story missions. So I have played the Lightfall campaign on Legendary twice at this point, and the missions divorced from the narrative are well put together and fun, for the most part. The overall act of playing Destiny, you know, the runny, jumpy, climby, grapple, slide, kill hordes of fairly dense enemies and bosses, while listening to very good music. Like, no, seriously, the music in this expansion fucking slaps! Then you have looking at pretty skyboxes in worlds that, unfortunately still, even with Neomuna, amount to little more than cardboard, drywall, and cheap theater. And I know I'm gonna get a lot of shit for this comparison, but Neomuna is very reminiscent of Europa. It's just a prettier, barren wasteland. If we're being honest, Neptune would have made a better SRL map than a play space. It's like Bungie spent so much time building up and making Neptune look pretty that they forgot to populate it. I mean, that's not to say that there aren't pockets of enemies, but they're so far and few between that it seems lifeless. Unless you're in an area where an event is going on, but even then, the enemy density isn't anything to write home about. Thankfully, the campaign doesn't spend too much time in the overworld. And so this isn't really a problem when you're playing the game, it's more of a post-campaign problem. I think Bungie, for the most part, achieved their goal of an action-heavy campaign. I think people are going to love the missions, dislike the story, and be divided on the new destination. That said, I do think that there are a couple things worth noting. This campaign, more so the Legendary campaign, wasn't as engaging as Witch Queen. And yes, a lot of that does have to do with the narrative being a classic example of a tale told by an idiot, full of sound and fury, ultimately signifying nothing. Lightfall in and of itself is an unnecessary story, and anything that would have made it necessary was, by design, cut out of the narrative to sell more DLC. So I don't necessarily feel bad saying it's a tale told by an idiot, because unless something changes, Bungie's content release model will ensure that in 12 months, 9 months, 6 months, or 3 months from the next DLC Final Shape, any revelations that clear up Lightfall's plot holes or vagueness or incomplete story will be removed wholesale from the product. Meaning, Lightfall will be a perpetually unfinished narrative that cannot stand alone. Which is funny because that is one of the biggest problems with Destiny 2. The fact that so much of the game has been gutted and relies on YouTube that for new players, the lore, the narrative, all of that is fairly untenable. With all of that said, not all of the narrative work done here is bad. There is a lot of character work that I particularly like. The real standout here is of course Osiris, with Keitel and Callus coming in at a close second. Osiris has had an interesting journey from a narrative standpoint. He spent the better part of a year as Savathun's meat suit, trapped in a mix of his mind and hers, and then he spent a lot of time in a coma. So Osiris has missed a lot relative to us. Nearly 2 years of his life gone. And so Osiris never really got to grieve the loss of Segura, where to us it's really old news. And so Osiris deals with his grief like a man driven, who throws himself into his work, into his obsession with the MacGuffin of the story, because he doesn't want to deal with that loss. And like I just said, Callus and Keitel have a very interesting story as well, though I would have liked to see it expanded on more. Keitel is just awesome whenever she's on screen. And Callus, whoa, he went on a journey. Like, yo, be careful what you wish for, you might just get it. The last thing that I want to touch on before I move on is the difficulty of the legendary campaign, or the lack thereof. And I think this is pretty well encompassed in the new enemy type, the Tormentor.
We want the Tormentors to be the most scary unit that you've ever fought.
Let's go, boys. Get him.
Holy crap, this combatant is very powerful. It means business.
It's incredibly intimidating.
I regret nothing!
You really have this intimate moment with this terrifying creature grabbing you.
Oh crap, oh crap, oh crap, oh crap, oh crap, oh crap, oh crap!
I'm ready! How about you?
Haha, you thought. Rockin' stone, rockin' stone, rockin' stone.
This is Sparta!
Most of the Tormentors, there are 2 versions, can be turned off, turning what Bungie hyped up as this new big bad into kind of a joke. In fact, if you want to turn the entire campaign on Legendary into a joke, just use a blinding grenade launcher. And to somewhat circle back to Lightfall being less satisfying than Witch Queen, when it comes to this new enemy type compared to Hive Guardians, I felt like Hive Guardians were more satisfying to fight, and I can tell you exactly what it is. It's this. Oh, that is just so well done. By comparison, Tormentors are bullet sponges with weird crit spots that run in your general direction and can kinda do damage. When fighting Tormentors, Tormentors get lost in the geometry. They get hung up on things. They get caught into loops where they're jumping up on boxes or jumping down off boxes and then jumping back up and then jumping down and jumping up and jumping down. Their AI pathing just seems off or bugged or not working as intended. Also, they're just kind of bland. This could have been a whole sub-faction, but we just got one type that has 2 different versions. Really? Oh, and the 2 different versions are exactly the same, except the other one, the boss one, has more health and can't be debuffed. Okay, so it's just a bullet sponge that has all the same AI behavioral issues that their non-boss counterparts have, so exploiting the boss Tormentors isn't hard. Speaking speaking of boring bullet sponges, the other annoyance about the Legendary campaign, and I think annoyance is the right word because it's not hard. Bungie sure likes their bullet sponges. This really didn't lead to harder encounters. This just led to boss fights becoming tedious. Half the time you're just sitting there in a well, shooting Wither Horde or linear fusion rifles or blinding grenade launchers or SMGs at a bullet sponge with no interesting mechanics. Destiny as a franchise has some of the best-in-class gunplay and movement and even mechanics when you get into raids and stuff like that. It's sad to see that not extend as much to campaigns and seasonal content as I think it should. I think you should teach new players or existing players how to do these harder mechanics so when they eventually graduate to doing raids and doing nightfalls and stuff like that, they have an idea of what's going on. But as it stands, all we get is bullet sponges. You can have the best gunplay in the world, but if you're sitting there shooting at something for 5 minutes, it's going to get boring. But moving forward to what I think is the best thing to come out of and I have to choose my words carefully here because the delineation is important, the Lightfall release window. And that is a series of much needed and long overdue quality of life changes that shipped alongside Lightfall. Far too many people are lumping the two together and forgiving Lightfall's faults because of these quality of life updates. Now, you might be wondering, but Joker, why is it important to delineate the two? Well, that's simple. Because you're not paying $50 for the quality of life changes. Praising Bungie for fixing the interface of their game and making other long overdue changes is kind of akin to praising Bungie for the Destiny 2 servers being turned on. Congratulations, you made a product that you make better because you like making money. And while these changes will make the day-to-day playing of Destiny leaps and bounds better than it has been in the last decade, and are probably more important than Lightfall's narrative, there are these things called bare fucking minimums. Quality of life changes so that your game runs better is a bare fucking minimum. So while these changes are wonderful, if not groundbreaking for Destiny as a whole, they're not part of the paid-for product that I am reviewing. Just like Season of Defiance is not part of Lightfall. Just because these things come out alongside Lightfall doesn't mean they're a part of Lightfall. Bungie wants to say that Destiny is an MMO. Well, it's gotta start acting like one, you know, a year before its Light and Darkness main saga that has been going on for 10 years is over with. I mean, I guess better late than never. But I digress. Point being, Lightfall is Bungie's most expensive expansion to date. And yet, at the same time, it is the most content-bearing. I don't need to itemize everything that came with Taken King, Rise of Iron, Forsaken, Shadowkeep, Beyond Light, or Witch Queen for this truth to be known. Lightfall is what? One story, one subclass, one new location, one raid, one new set of armor for each class, one new strike, a handful of exotic weapons, everything else? Well, if it's not a reskin, it's been carved off and sold separately. But Joker, making video games is expensive! And you know what? You may have had my sympathies. If we didn't have an entire GDC presentation dedicated to training the player base like Pavlov's fucking dog to expect less. Speaking of which, I guess Bungie's mantra of don't overdeliver doesn't scale with a higher price tag. In fact, it seems to lose value. And now we find out that the story that comes in the most expensive Destiny DLC ever had its revelations and plot-relevant topics pushed off to other DLC or to release alongside other DLC, which means $50 doesn't even buy you a coherent story. You can't make this up! You know, provided that Bungie's actually telling the truth and that is the plan, and they're not just scrambling to repair a narrative that has more holes in it than Swiss cheese. All in all, Lightfall is just okay. That said, I wouldn't recommend it, unless you're a dyed-in-the-wool Destiny mega fan, and then you're probably not here watching this video. But new players, the new player experience is absolute garbage. Lapsed players, if you really want to get back into Destiny, the story missions themselves are largely okay. If all you care about is shooting hordes of aliens for a couple of hours and some better menus, then maybe I could recommend it to you. But even then, I think you're going to be more frustrated with the narrative than a superfan who's going to defend it. Because you don't even have to be invested to be annoyed by the narrative. Because even Bife couldn't tell you what happened. If Bife couldn't tell you what happened, what hope is there for any of us? But yeah, it's not terrible, it's not great, and it's definitely not worth $50. If this was like $50 and had 5 Crucible maps, 3 strikes, a bunch of armor, a bunch of new original weapons, a new 6-player activity, a comprehensive narrative that tells a story that makes sense, then yeah, that would be worth $50, and I don't think that is asking much. I don't. I really don't think that's entitled. I think those are bare fucking minimums. But hey, those are just my thoughts. Let me know yours in the comments below. Remember to like, but only if you did. Subscribe for more. Feel free to donate to my Patreon if you're feeling particularly generous. And above all else, stay frosty.